Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Because the 9th of August 2022 will be the 60th yahrzeit death anniversary of my second favorite writer, Hermann Hesse, whom I fell in love with when I was a teenager, I'm devoting this month on both my YouTube channel and on my main blog to a celebration of his life and works. Let's continue with a discussion about his influence on my own writing. And by the way, this is based off of the blog post which I just published today, the 8th of August, and as always, I'll be filling it out with some extra thoughts and such that I didn't include in the blog post because of the word count limit and such I like to stick with. So anyway, let's just get down with it. The main example which immediately springs to mind is Little Randall, which is one of the books of my heart. I did a video about it, I think like September or October in 2021. I believe just about, like background information about like reading and researching and writing the book and just, like personal tidbits here and there. I possibly might redo that video at some point if I get enough subscribers and people commenting, because obviously it doesn't really feel good to do a personal video and only one person comments on it. So obviously I would hopefully like to start redoing some of my older videos with barely any comments at some point, so you can go watch that anyway if you would want to. But anyway, this is a major book I've written which has like a huge influence of Hermann Hesse, frequent references to him and his work, and it's just just such a personal thing. I was able to include this writer I absolutely love in a book that was also so close to my heart. And as I've mentioned many times in my blog posts, middle Troy's sister Emmeline, who isn't the main character by the way, the main character of this book is Adisha, who is the one of the youngest sisters. She's the 7th of 9 children and the second youngest sister altogether. And so Emmeline is my doppelganger, albeit with some differences. Like, for example, where we went to school, I only wish I had gone to Vassar or had the beautiful chance to have a single-sex education. And the fact that I have never smoked pot, and also many other little things between us. For example, I never grew up nearly as poor as Emmeline, and at the time I wrote the book, George hadn't become my favorite Beatle yet, or at least I hadn't admitted to myself yet he had become my favorite Beatle. But there are little differences between us, but most of the things between us are very, very similar by design, particularly in the later books in the series, which are still on hiatus, but hopefully will be continued and finished soon, God willing, or at least when I get back to them, within the next few years. And one of those keen similarities between us is our love of Hermann Hesse. Our first Hesse novel was Damian, although Emmeline first read it in the 6th grade instead of starting it the summer before 9th grade. And like myself, Emmeline also reads 3, 4 grade levels above herself, and obviously it's kind of frustrating. These people your own age are still reading basic chapter books while you're already graduating to adult novels, and just why are these people still reading these babyish books you can barely understand? Obviously not to throw shade on people because they're reading the way they just genuinely read. Maybe they're reluctant readers, or they just have had a hard time learning to read and such. But it's just particularly when you're young yourself, you can't really relate to that, and it's kind of unfairly judge these people because you don't have adult mindset. But anyway, we were both advanced readers, and one of the things we shared in common was both getting into Hermann Hesse when we were very, very young. And so anyway, the novel Damian is recommended to Emmeline by her German-Jewish surrogate mother, Sarah, who later suggests several other Hesse novels she thinks Emmeline will love. When the mean girls at school are taunting Emmeline and her sisters in the schoolyard on Halloween 1959, Emmeline responds, "Why are any of you so mean to us? Are you just offended we're different from you, and that difference makes you uncomfortable? I was reading a book our nanny recommended, and it says when you hate someone, you hate something in that person that's part of yourself, since what isn't part of ourselves doesn't disturb us." Ernestine, the next sister after Emmeline, soon asks if she can read that book after Emmeline finishes, and Emmeline says it's an adult book, probably not at Ernestine's reading level. Sarah told her the author won the Nobel Prize in 1946. After Damian, Emmeline reads Gertrude, Beneath the Wheel, and Peter Commonsind. In June 1962, at age 14, she rereads Damian and checks out several of his other books, not named. When her black-hearted mother sees the books and begins ranting about them because of the Kraut name, she's obviously very anti-German, anti-German sentiment still left over from World War II. Emmeline says Hermann Hesse is Swiss, not German, and that one of the books Sarah recommended, Narcissus and Goldmund, hasn't been properly translated into English yet, so she had to settle for different titles. Presumably they include Siddhartha, which Sarah also recommended. And Narcissus and Goldmund, it was somewhere in the early 1930s. I'm sorry if I forget the exact year. It was published in English under the title Death and the Lover, and I guess some people didn't really feel that was a proper translation, just not least because of the title made it seem a little bit differently. And unfortunately, until I guess the huge explosion when Hesse was rediscovered by the the Western counterculture hippie movement. His books just weren't really widely available in English, and many hadn't been translated. Like, I guess like more than a few had been translated, but it just wasn't like today you can find like just about everything he ever wrote translated into English, nonfiction and shorter works, as well as the full-length novels. Throughout the book, Damian and its themes are referred to several times, like Hesse's marvelous midrash about how the mark of Cain is really the mark of a nonconformist, someone special, someone unafraid to go against the crowd, and the concept of a half-good, half-evil deity like Abraxas. Emmeline finally gets to read Narcissus and Goldmund in 1968. Though one of her majors at Vassar is German studies, a love largely inspired by Hesse. She explains that knowing a language fluently doesn't automatically mean one can easily read an entire book without stumbling. Emmeline is also very annoyed that many of her hippie friends are into Hesse because he's trendy, while she loved him long before his books were embraced by the counterculture. And when you love, like a person or thing, like band, actor, movie, like painter, whatever, for your own reasons, genuinely, not because like, ooh, look at me all mindlessly following along with the crowd and doing what all my like high school friends are doing, or what like my favorite celebrities on Pinterest are telling me I should. Like, that love tends to stay with you for the long haul, because you're not just like, oh, I'm just following the crowd instead of following my own heart. And even like after the crowd moves on to the next big thing, you will stay with that person. Like, for example, many bands have like a big heyday when they first come out, or at least after they hit it big, and like after like 5 years or whatever, they continue making records and such, but they're just not the like rush of screaming teeny boppers like there used to be. And so like the real fans have stayed with these bands all these years long after the initial like frenzy passes. And so those are the real fans, the ones who stick through the band through thick and thin, or like who stay with an author just because like, oh, he's not trendy at the moment, but I don't care because I genuinely would love his books anyway. And I kind of feel sorry for people who only get into like writers and actors and artists and like singers and bands and such, because, oh, look at me, I'm following the trend, I'm just liking whoever's popular and whoever the crowd tells me to go along with. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but that's just like one of my big pet peeves, and obviously Emmeline shares that in common with me. Part 3, The Conjoined Twins of Agony and Ecstasy, takes its title from an important moment in Narcissus and Goldmund, when Goldmund sees women in childbirth in a barn at night, when one of the communities he's passing through, I guess like all the people are called into the barn to like help with this community event, because like once upon a time birth was a a big like community thing. Obviously like men weren't typically allowed into the birthing room or didn't really want to watch, but sometimes the entire community would turn out, and it was just like the woman was being brought to bed by her nearest and dearest instead of alone among strangers in a hospital. But that's like a rant for a whole other topic. Her face strikingly reminds him of an orgasmic woman, and Goldmund is quite the womanizer, really getting around, but he's not some like horrible like cad using women. He's just like, this is part of his awakening and his journey discovering sexuality and beautiful women, and helping to translate into the artwork which he is doing. Never before has he realized how closely linked agony and ecstasy are, and that becomes one of the things he's most keen to translate into the dream Madonna he longs to create. Goldmund is an artist. One of the 2 quotes on the title page of Part 2, Dramatic Developments, is from Siddhartha. I have always believed, and I still believe, that whatever good or bad fortune may come our way, we can always give it meaning and transform it into something of value. Emmeline also includes some Hesse quotes among the things taped up on her apartment wall when she moves to Hudson Falls. That same pivotal realization in Narcissus and Goldmund inspired the title of Chapter 27, The Close Entwining of Despair and Joy, in the 12th time, Lyuba and Ivan on the Rocks. And that is my second Russian historical novel, which I still haven't done a video on here, but hopefully I will be, like doing it soon, because I would really like to do more videos on the background of my novels and such. The last line of Volume 2 of Journey Through a Dark Forest. To be born or create something new, one must first destroy the pre-existing world, for better or worse, comes straight from the lines in Damian, a cryptic note accompanying a drawing Max Damian sends to narrator Emile Sinclair. The bird fights its way out of the egg. The egg is a world. Who would be born must first destroy a world. The bird flies to God. That God's name is Abraxas. This also inspired the final line of Volume 1 of A Dream Deferred, Lyuba and Ivan at University, which is one of my works in progress. It's been like hiatus for like coming up on 2 years now, but I'm really, really excited to get back to it. I've been doing, some preliminary note-taking and such, skimming through it, so I know what I can, have to add to it and like take out and change and such, but that's like obviously, again, another topic for a different video. And so anyway, the final line of this part one, which will be published as volume 1 because the book sprawled so much, and it's yet another, the second book I will have to be, publishing as one book in 4 volumes because I don't want to like sacrifice like my creative vision for it by chopping it down to all of 300 pages. A new world can never be wrought without the old world being destroyed first. Like the other line, it's in Katrine's point of view, and in the preceding lines, she thinks back to those closing lines of her World of Tomorrow essay from 1939. Elsewhere in Dream Deferred, Damian and Steppenwolf are referred to, with the lines about hating something in people that's part of yourself. Now Steppenwolf delves into a concept like the ego, superego, and id, with contrary desires, impulses, and beliefs, and that's also similar to the theory about the reptilian brain. And this is also one of the lines about Damian I found in part 4, which will be published as volume 4. If you hate a person, you hate something in him that is part of yourself. What isn't part of ourselves doesn't disturb us, as it says in Hermann Hesse's Damian. Vilada adds, it doesn't mean those exact qualities are in a nature, but there are parallels between similar things. One might dislike murderers without being a murderer oneself, but he might have a quick temper and hateful attitudes. Or we might hate someone who drives like a madman while respecting road rules ourselves, but we violate other little laws or social norms we consider silly or invalid. In my Atlantic City books, Cinnamon's father recommends Hesse to her in the spring of 1940 and suggests she might formally take German at school so she can read his books untranslated. Cindy's German skills have gotten very rusty, but she hasn't really needed to use it much since her friends Sparky and Sparky's brothers and parents of Sparky's real name is Catherine, by the way, have become fluent in English, so she doesn't need to speak to them in German and Dutch anymore. And most of Hesse's books weren't available in English in that era, as I previously mentioned. When Sini gives birth to her first child in August 1951, she names him Damian in honor of this special character and book. So thank you very much for watching until the end. I really do appreciate all of my subscribers, and I'm particularly excited because I finally made it to 100 subscribers, and hopefully I will start seeing more, comments from these subscribers instead of just people like watching and dropping a like, because I really do want to become friends with more people here on BookTube and AuthorTube, and I really, really do appreciate all the support I've gotten from people who do enjoy, watching my videos and interacting with me and leaving an intelligent, thoughtful, respectful comments. And so I will see you guys again very soon. Oh, and I'm sorry, my next video will hopefully be on August the 9th, because that will be the anniversary of the war crime of the bombing of Nagasaki. Obviously, on the Hiroshima anniversary was on August the 6th, and I've read this book recently, Nagasaki, Life After Nuclear War by Susan Southard. I mean, I had been against the bombing since I was 14 or 15 years old in the mid-90s, but reading this book made me even more against the bombing. There were like so many more damning reasons, like, for example, like the U.S. government and military authorities knew it was like a bad idea and that we shouldn't have done this, so they went on a campaign to deliberately suppress information about the true horrible extent of it, and even like made up lies, like claiming like 1 million servicemen's lives were saved by the bombs, which is a complete BS. But anyway, I'm sorry I'm getting off topic again, but this was just like a really important emotional read for me, and hopefully you will tune in to see me discussing that book tomorrow. And tomorrow, obviously, August 9th will be Hermann Hesse's 60th yahrzeit death anniversary, and maybe I will do a second video on that day talking about him again in some capacity. And so thank you guys again very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.